doing 313, onboarding new commissioners. I would tend to think that all of you folks who are participating in this course probably were not onboarded. Is there anybody that was onboarded? After I got into this, I did not realize how much onboarding goes on around us. And so we're going to talk about those different components of onboarding. So our course objectives is we're going to define what onboarding is. We're going to talk about the different types of onboarding processes that may be around us. What could be included in the onboarding process? And we're also going to review onboarding processes for new commissioners, and kind of go over those and discuss different components about this. This is going to be a very interactive session, and so your comments are going to be very important. Many of you may have been on a cruise before, and what are some of the things that you expect when you get on that cruise line, or just before you get on the cruise line? Or any comments there? Greg Z, what would you expect?
Warm and friendly greeting.
A warm and friendly greeting, okay.
And a beginning of the whole service process.
Okay, so you would expect to get a warm and friendly greeting. Great. Donnie, what would you expect?
I've never been on a cruise, but to know what was available and how to access it.
Okay, so getting directions. Okay, great. How about you, Jonathan? B?
Yeah, again, I've never been on a cruise, so I would expect somebody to tell me what to do.
Okay. Is there anybody else that has anybody been on a cruise?
I've been on several.
Greg, tell us one other thing that happens when you get on the cruise line. What happens to your luggage?
It gets assigned to your cabin.
Okay.
So it gets tagged according to your cabin number.
Okay.
And first of all, you absolutely expect that they have your reservation and your payment.
Okay, good.
And they have a record of that.
Okay.
So,
and when you get to your cabin, what happens there? Are you just left by yourself, or something, or are you assigned somebody?
You're assigned a cabin attendant.
Right.
Of varying degrees.
Okay.
If you're a inside budget passenger, you have different attendant levels than you do if you are in one of the special suites where you have a bellhop, actually, or a bellman.
I'm going to ask it. So generally, in very often cases, you're assigned a steward, and that steward is to make sure that your experience is the best it can be, according to what he or she can give to you, right? Or the bellhop or whatever. Everybody on that ship, their focus is to make your experience as positive as possible. Is that correct?
Correct.
You're assigned activities director. Everything is clearly marked, as clearly as it can be. They tell you definitely where the food's at, or where, if you want to have a special experience, where you can have those things at. They want you to have that best. So what's the key thing the cruise line is trying to achieve by how they're treating you? Any answers?
Return business.
What's that?
Return business.
Return business. That's exactly right. If they have a happy customer, that customer is going to come back.
And not only return business, but I think they want you to tell all your friends too and get them to come on a cruise.
That's exactly right. So now do you think this only happens on cruise lines? What we're talking about here, this very positive experience that you're having, do you think that only cruise lines use this type of a boarding process of taking people through a very positive experience?
In the early days of Southwest Airlines,
Yep.
they were found very famous for how fun they made it
Right.
for the passengers, and the flight attendants had total reign on making that announcement, the boarding announcements, to be fun and humorous and engaging.
Yes.
And it was primarily just to take some of the anxiety away and to have you tell your friends
Yeah.
and to come back.
Yep. And so what we're getting at is this is really the onboarding process. Onboarding is a term referring to the process of introducing a person into an organization, also known as organizational socialization. Onboarding is an important part of helping people understand their new environment and expectations. Now, the key thing I wanted to get out of this specific thing is this part of the presentation is that onboarding happens all the time. You can use it for new employees. We can use it for apps on our apps and stuff like that. There's 3 stages of this organizational socialization. One is anticipatory. Now the non-group member learns to take on the values and the standards of the group and aspires to join. So oftentimes that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the person who may not have our values and standards already ingrained into them as a commissioner. And so we need to help them take on that. So they're going to go through this anticipatory process. Then they're going to encounter where a person joins or enters the organization. So they're going to register, they're going to do some of those things. Then there's the metaphor for, I'm not even saying it right. Anybody want to say this for? Metamorphosis, where a person makes the transition from being an outsider to an insider. Has anybody seen that happen in scouting?
Many times.
I think I agree with you. I think you see that change. Wood Badge is probably the place where I've seen it most significant. Trainings where someone experiences the same thing as you're experiencing, and all of a sudden that outsider becomes an insider. They know that they understand scouting just a little bit more than what they've understood it in the past. I've seen it happen at Roundtable, where, for instance, in a Cub Roundtable, you have a new leader that learns how to do a new game, and they gain that confidence. Using the EDGE method is probably a really good example of that metamorphosis that happens of that person having explained to them. They've been guided through it. They demonstrate how to do it, and then they're enabled. Anybody would like to add any other things to that?
Don't we actually start this at age 6 or 7 or 8 with cubs?
Yep.
And then 11-year-old scouts, they don't have a clue what's going on until they've been there 2 or 3 months. And then all of a sudden a new 11-year-old cub comes, or a new 11-year-old scout comes, and they are up a couple of the previous scouts up a couple of notches, and they're able to help that new scout going into varsity, going into explorer, going into order of the arrow.
Right.
Every one of those experiences introduces scouts to new encounters, to new organizations, to new
that's a great, those are all great examples. And I really am bringing this up because we've gone through it again and again. And Annalise said at the first, she wasn't ever aware of it. And it isn't anything against Annalise, because I was the same way. It was like, what is this new onboarding process? Why am I not using it? Blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, as I got into it, I went, I use this all the time. I've been engaged in this all the time. What's the deal? Why haven't I recognized it? And that's part of why we're doing this. So we've talked about the 3 stages, and there's an article that I found, and this talks about apps a little bit, and it was very intriguing. I put the link here, so if you're interested in reading that. I thought it's kind of on the abstract side, but all of a sudden you start to realize that, wow, we really do this stuff a lot. This is one of the parts that he brought out. He said only 23% of the apps that are put out for the computers ever get a second time, a person coming back a second time. So there's 75% of the apps that are out there that, because they don't design their onboarding correctly, ever get reviewed a second time. And that's key to their business if they want to do that. And so they've got to walk people through the proper processes and stuff like that. And in its onboarding process, they need to give them a chance to do the activation. They need to personalize it for them. They need to provide it informational for them, and get them to be hooked on it. They need to, the person needs to find value in what they're getting. And so as we're looking at this, all of you are probably potential mentors. And so we need to look for that value that new commissioner is going to get, that we're going to be taking them through. They talked about the aha moment or the wow. A lot of us that are here, you may have a couple of them. Could you share one of them with us?
I'm afraid my wow moment was being scouting so long. It's been you mean you guys don't know this?
Okay. How about you, Annalise? What was your wow moment?
I think one of them for me was I'd been Cub Master for a few years, and every time a new boy would join our pack, it was of course always fun and exciting to have somebody new excited about Cub Scouting. But there was one particular boy that I remember in particular, that when I went by his house to drop off his new handbook, he was so excited to see me and to have that in his hands. He ran up, he gave me a great big hug, and he said, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then he grabbed the book and he hugged it to his chest, and he just rocked back and forth and said, oh, I love it. I mean, I had never seen a boy so excited to receive a book, that I went, wow, this is something serious to him, that he was so excited. It was just amazing.
Huh. That's awesome. I remember having a similar moment with myself with the person that asked me to be a Cub Scout. But anyways, Ed, any things you could share with us?
Well, the first thought that came to mind when you mentioned that was Scoutmaster, and that's been back in the mid-'80s when they first made me a Scoutmaster. And I took over a bunch of boys that were playing basketball every week. And so it was a matter of trying to change that attitude. And basically, I had to wait until those boys left and I got new boys. And we started having regular meetings and started camping every month. And all of a sudden, I see this group of boys that are working together. And I realized that was my job, is to see those guys working together. And we were at camp and I'm sitting there looking at that, actually sitting in the easy chair, watching my senior patrol leader run things. And I'm going, this is the way it's supposed to be. That was my aha moment. It was just awesome. Been in love
Cool.
with scouting ever since.
Cool. And is there anybody else that would like to share an aha moment before we move on? My aha moment in scouting was when I camped with my patrol next to about a mile away from our home, next to old concrete ditch. That was my first camp out with no adults. And it was everything that scouting could be for us. I know that our parents were looking over the hill and checking on us and stuff like that. We didn't have a scout leader at the time. And that began my career as a older scout. And that was probably my big aha moment of wanting to make sure that all young people had an opportunity to have those aha moments if they possibly could. So that's it all. I think that's all what ingrains us and keeps us in scouting, I think.
My aha moment was with the Sea Scouts. I was
Okay.
the only woman involved at that point, and we were at a gathering, and I overheard boys from another unit asking some of my boys what it was like having a woman leader. And I got to hear what my boys had to say, and it was really kind of neat.
Well, that's awesome, Donnie. Thank you.
Don.
That's good. So for onboarding in scouting, a lot of times the final process is kind of a worksheet that we have for coaches to go through. It's a list of 10 to 12 tasks that we go through. It helps kind of frame and helps us walk through the task. I think the key thing that I really want everybody to get out of this is as a mentor, as a ADC, as a district committee chairman, or wherever we're at, it's very important that that person knows where they're going and has that vision in their mind. As a district committee chairman, that was one of the first things that it was asked of me, is to create that vision and to spend time so I could direct and guide folks where we wanted to be. I talked in my previous session about recruiting, and we spend a lot of time doing recruiting, and there's a lot of cost to it. And so this onboarding becomes a very important part of what we need to do, because we've spent so much time on it. So BSA talks an awful lot about training. Why is training so important in BSA? Anybody want to make a comment there?
Consistency.
Consistency, good. Anything else?
I think trained leaders feel more confident of what they're supposed to do. They know that they've been told and taught what and how to do it.
Okay, good. Any other comments? One that doesn't come up very often, and there's a good reason why we don't talk about it very often, but the legal aspect of training is very important. And we're seeing more and more in the training requirements that there is a time schedule that is there for training I'm going to use for our scout leaders. For Scouts BSA, there are steps that they should be through, and if they are put at risk, and that's one of the first things that's asked is are they trained? So let's just kind of take a look at what some of these things are. So we go to we need to get people registered, obviously, take youth protection. Then you take your position-specific training. Then you'll learn about commissioner tools. So maybe for our commissioners, you're going to learn about all this about your unit being a unit commissioner or an ADC or a roundtable commissioner or an assistant roundtable commissioner. Those are kind of all going to occur at that BSA Learn Center. So that face-to-face may not happen till over here on this other side. I kind of think we probably should encourage that face-to-face to happen in that registration side to make sure we're in contact with the individual and they're moving quickly through it. You're going to complete your onboarding tasks. We're going to talk about that. Once you complete those, the individual becomes trained and they are commissioned. And so that's kind of the training thing. Where this OR is at, they could have the training in person or online. So it goes both ways. In the council currently right now, we're just doing online courses. So why do we do the onboarding process? We want a successful commissioner. We want them to come back. We want them to stay in scouting. Wherever they may go, we really do want them to stay there. We want them to allow them to understand their role as commissioner, and in so doing, we promote that positive relationship between the commissioner and the unit. So here kind of talks about the mechanism of onboarding. The best onboarding strategies provide us a fast track to meaningful, productive work and a strong employee relationship. That's what we need to look towards, is to get that orientation going and so forth. I talked to my son today, who's a HR specialist, and I talked to him. I said, tell me about your onboarding process. I asked him about it. So what do you do when you bring somebody on? Oh, they go through 2 weeks of being introduced to people and going to different departments, and he just talked about each of these different steps that they went on so that they could be very efficient and wouldn't have to bump around the office and wonder what they should be doing. So that's part of their onboarding process. So we have a number of different onboarding records. There's unit commissioner, roundtable and assistant roundtable commissioner, district and assistant district commissioner, and I'll show you where those are at. Let's talk about a coach right now. What do you think some of the roles of a coach are? I gotta bring that back up. Donnie, what would you think? You're looking for a position. What would be some of your roles as a coach, as a mentor or a coach for a new commissioner?
For a new commissioner, basically let them know exactly, well, not exactly, a general idea of what your responsibilities are going to be and any insights to the particular units that you're going to be working
Okay.
with.
Okay, good. Ed, is there some things that you see that would be a little different than maybe what's on this page here, or other things, or could add to what's on the page?
Well, I think information is going to be the biggest thing as far as a coach goes. They're going to help them understand what their new job's going to be and what's expected of them. So it's like in coaching any kind of sporting event. You know,
Okay.
you're just going to want them to know what their job's going to be and what's expected of them, and to help them achieve that goal.
Good, good. So each of the items, each of the onboarding items are very, very critical in helping that new commissioner. So we're going to take a minute and review some of the onboarding records. Okay. In your commissioner basic training, you're going to find, if you click on that, it'll open up there. There's a number of different places. It has our onboarding records. And so I'm going to do the unit commissioner, and I'll zoom in on these. I can get rid of that. Oh, well. So the first thing it talks about is it talks about complete the online training. How can we make this more effective for these new commissioners? This is my experience. When I was put in as a unit commissioner, they said, go get trained. Wasn't any other information. They said, go get trained. And I had enough initiative that I kind of figured out where I needed to go. So how can we kind of help? They're gonna go online. How can we? Is there ways that we can help them be a little bit more comfortable with these trainings? Any thoughts?
I think we definitely need to tell them, you know, hey, go to my.scouting, do this. Hopefully, you know, if they're already registered, they already have an account there, they know where it is. You know, if you walk them
Okay.
through the steps, if go here, do this, you know, that kind of thing. And if they haven't yet, if we're actually at the registration stage still and giving them this, we're like, you're going to go here, you're going to create an account, you're going to, you know, kind of walk them through the steps and let them know how easy it is, and give them your number and say, and if you're having issues, contact me, let me help you walk it through it, kind of. Because
Okay.
I've had so many leaders that, you know, again, you're told you just go get trained, and yeah, they'd be like, what, where, how, hi, you know. And if they would just call and say, okay, do you see this, do you go that, click that, oh, now I get it. And you know, sometimes
Yeah.
they just need a little help.
No, good. That's really good. Um, I did a number of in-person trainings. Oh, it's been over 5 years ago, and I would do probably 2 or 3 a year. And the thing I always felt bad about at the conclusion of the training is I looked at all these people, and there were only 1 or 2 that didn't appear to have deer in the headlight eyes. And it was a 3-hour training. It was what we were supposed to be doing. And it made me realize there was something that I was missing, and I was overwhelming them so much. But that's the way they wanted to take the training. They wanted to get it done all at once. So I think that's one of the things we're going to have to sit down and figure out. That's one of the things I do like about the online training. It's in sections, and so you can study that, and there's possibility as a coach you could contact them and say, oh, you've done this training, what did you think about this section, and ask them specific questions to kind of help them understand a little bit more. So you're going to talk to them about places of where staff meetings are at. It's important and district events, and help them kind of walk through some of those things. Hopefully the district commissioner has that information for you so you can do that. Otherwise, you'll have to generate yourself. We no longer have a field commissioner book. The book that we have now is, anybody want to remind me what it is? I want to say roadmap. Dang it. I can't think of the name of it. I'll think of it. We'll get it in there correctly. That provides us some good stuff there. They need to log in and into Scout, my scouting tools. This is the one that I think that I think I do too much for my commissioners. Sometimes I wonder if because I can run these reports real quick. They're easy. And you just learn how to, you know, once you learn how to do them, then it's not too bad. Attend the monthly district commissioner meeting. What happens at that district commissioner meeting? What are some of the things that should be happening there? How about Jonathan, your district commissioner?
So the district commissioner meeting, well, I mean, from an overall perspective, make sure no one has questions. But from a reporting perspective, it's where you ask people where things are at, have some examples given, unify sort of some of the themes of the visits that are upcoming, right?
Okay. Those are all good things. I think I think that helps out a lot.
I kind of
Did
see
you-
it as a a type of roundtable specifically for commissioners where we do a little bit of training, we do a little bit of sharing of ideas, asking questions, you know, a lot of that kind of.
Okay, good. Are there any of these other ones, progress reports you'd like to look at before we close up for today? I think this is kind of a question answer period. Any questions? After doing this, it's like, man, I got to start doing this onboarding. I've got to, you know, I fully intended to get a hold of a number of my commissioners, unit commissioners, and identify some of them that I could have as mentors so that they would attend this class. Well, I didn't get them here. So now I got to work. But anyways, but I think, you know, from my personal standpoint, onboarding is going to help us move forward. I really definitely want to kind of understand a little bit better about the website onboarding. There's some aspects of that I think if we understand better as scouters, that we can become more efficient at it, because there's some tools there that help us deal with the onboarding process. That's what we're doing. This is onboarding. and we're trying to get people engaged and actively, you know, learning and stuff like that. And so, but anyway, so I appreciate all of your time, and thank you very much, and the best of luck in all your work.